I'd like to do it like we did last week and have people share first about their week or about tonight, just the guided meditation. So if you'd like to unmute, go ahead. This is also a perfectly good time to ask a question or anything else. Just let me and everyone know what's going on. So, Jennifer?
Actually, Nick, and just a brief one. We were last week, and I was thinking, and actually I missed a week, and so I'm not sure exactly when you talked about, because I listened to your recordings, de-instrumentalizing, resensitizing.
Yes, that was actually both last session and the session before. I talked about it a little more the first time.
Yeah. So, and you talked about this, like the grasping mind, and it was just another way, for me to think about just letting go of all my thoughts, and I hadn't, I don't know, it was just another set of words that were helpful for me when I was actually trying to be quiet and just be in the nature. We were in a beautiful place, and I just wanted to be with the beauty, and my mind kept wanting to grasp facts and questions and curiosities about everything, and as opposed to just being there without all the grasping thoughts. And they weren't like bad thoughts, they were just curious grasping thoughts. So anyway, that was helpful.
Right. I mean, even in a certain way, wanting to know the name of a plant or something is a little bit instrumental. There's no complaint about it, but it's different to just be present.
Yeah.
It's different to just let it come in, let it touch you. That's really kind of the theme of this class, is to let what you're present with touch you. So when you're out in nature, I like to know stuff. I'm curious about stuff. But, there's just once in a while, you'll just like look at something and it's just like, let the beauty touch you, even just let the presence touch you. I sometimes feel in the presence of a plant like there is a presence there that I'm with, And there's various opinions about whether plants are conscious or not. I'm pretty confident they are. And but when in the presence of a plant, there is like its presence, its energy, and that can be something that just touches you, like you've just had an encounter with a being who's very alien being to us human beings. It's the way that it works, the way that it like operates is so different than us, and yet I do feel like just kind of on a heart level, one can actually sense the being of a plant. So
I did that with tree outside.
You broke up there a second. Say it again.
I said I did it with the palm tree outside of our window.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Can I say something now?
Sure, absolutely.
I don't remember which was last week, but you mentioned something about, it might have been right after you talked about that bumper sticker you saw, which the love sticker.
Say it again. What I saw? The
bumper sticker.
Oh, the bumper sticker. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
So now I can't stop thinking about that.
Oh yeah. I sorry I infected you.
That's all right. But I really liked how you turned that around. But I think it was after that where you talked about like being sensitive to other people, maybe when maybe you don't know what's going on with them. But anyway, so we were in on a French island, and it was awkward because we don't speak French. And the place we stayed was owned by a French man and a Ukrainian woman, and she doesn't speak English. And then this other gentleman who was working with us is German and German French. But anyway, one of them was saying about the woman, that she's cold. And I was just like, I think you're misunderstanding, because she was the most sensitive woman I'd ever met. And we didn't speak English or French to each other, but we just felt each other's presence. Mm-hmm. And this other guy who was the concierge for us, he's a really big guy, and he says, well, she's from the East. And I'm like, Gautier, she's lovely and you need to get to know her. But it was just like this sense of feeling somebody's tenderness. I mean, she was so beautiful and just couldn't speak the language, but yeah, it felt good to, open that up and maybe give her an opportunity to be seen differently.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And
your sensitivity was a gift, really, to her and to him.
Yes, it was really beautiful. And interesting, but yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. Sometimes we judge people on the basis of almost nothing. Just some initial impression hits some chord in us, and they represent something. And it's so easy to dismiss people. People are complex, and everybody has their moments, myself included. If people were to decide who I am based on that moment, they'd have a very different idea of me than they might on this moment. So, yeah, I'll share. So I'm here to be with my grandchild, as most of you know. And on the theme of tenderness, I must say, she is, she's 5 months. She doesn't really have the nervous system to block anything, really. And just like watching her face, I call it Lucy TV. I could watch her face for hours and hours, because it's like these momentary sorts of moods go through her. You can see her thinking. You can see her like light up. Oh my goodness, it's so beautiful when, she hasn't seen her parents, and then they come in and she just whatever that kind of glow of joy that, oh, they're here. And then the sensitivity, we were doing Eensy Weensy Spider with her, the Eensy Weensy Spider goes up the garden spout. And it is such an intense experience for a 5-month-old. It's like she's just tuning into these fingers, and then the rain coming down, like, what's going on? And then when the spider washes, I got to get it up a little higher. The spider washes it out. There's this sort of look like, oh my goodness. And then the sun comes up, and suddenly she like smiles, and there's this visible relief that comes over her. And it's like, that was just like 15 seconds of this intense experience for her. And her life must be like that all the time. It's why, when you're a child, time seems to like go on forever. And like the distance between one Christmas and the next is almost eternal. So, I think in her kind of consciousness, as I can observe it, she's so rooted in now, and now is so, there's, the lights are all on. I really get the sense of her as the lights are all on. And, and the world is touching her every moment with such intensity. And that's not necessarily what I'm advocating in this class, that level of intensity. But there is something about it that is beautiful and so completely alive. And, there can be some filters. I sometimes think of it like skin. There can be a soft membrane between us and the world, a sensitive membrane. But I'm just kind of right in the thick of it, of just like how, and we keep remarking to ourselves, she's such a human being. I mean, all of the facial expressions and the way she's like tuning into us and we're tuning into her, there's just something so basically human about it. And I feel like it calls forth my own tenderness, when I'm with her. The fact that she is so unguarded and so transparent, it just can't but kind of open me in a certain way to that kind of sensitivity. So I know this is a kind of a special experience, but those of you who have this experience, either as a grandparent or a parent or an aunt or uncle, can know what I'm talking about. There's something in just being around an infant that elicits this kind of tenderness in people. So that's my share. Who else? I thought about giving Lucy as the talk, but I guess I gave it as a share. All right, Virginia, let's try it again.
All right, I'll try it again. How's it sound?
It sounds fine to me. It sounded fine before.
Better? Oh, okay.
I see Tana shaking her head. Yes. People are shaking
Okay.
their heads. Yes. Go ahead.
Well, I sat this morning and I sat a few times this week with the meditation that you did last week.
Mhm.
And so there was something very body about it, and I wrote about it. So I thought I would read what I wrote this morning. My body is a planet called Virginia Rose, a planet consisting of all those things that make up any planet: forest, jungle, desert, the plains, ocean, rivers, tributaries, lookouts, rock, shoreline, vast open space. And yes, many tiny, invisible to the naked eye beings reside in the planet, in fact, make up the planet. This morning, there was a tsunami, but just prior to that, the ocean, the Heart Ocean, the entire heart area that is made up of saltwater tears, flowed within and over and without itself. The waves flowed, kneading the entire area, kneading like bread. And then a tsunami overflowing through the entire planet system, touching and sparking with water every cell, every nerve, every drop of blood and muscle fiber. And finally, the abdominal sponge wrung itself out and settled into the vast open space as the early morning winged doves took flight for the light of day. That's it.
Wow, thank you.
You're
Wow,
welcome.
it's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a very strong experience in my heart. And my heart all of a sudden, my body just felt like thinking of it as a planet was really, I don't know, it was just somehow transformative for me this morning. And so I liked when you were doing the meditation today and talked about muscle and bones and, all this stuff. It just felt very kind of synchronistic for me.
All right, beautiful. And I
Yeah.
haven't had the thought of the body as a planet. I have thought of it as like this giant city, and each little cell is a department with its light on, and like a little being in there, that we're composed of, all these beings. I don't know how many cells there are in the body. It'd be interesting if there's 7 going on 8 billion human beings on this planet, plus innumerable other beings. It's got to be something like that,
Crazy.
Right. Okay, Diane.
Just thinking of something as you described and animated so nicely your granddaughter. That was sweet. It seems so much easier to accept tenderness from children and animals, but it feels less vulnerable for some reason than from another adult. It's just an observation. So,
Do you have any idea why? Can you say any more about it? What it feels like if another adult is really tender with you?
It's probably got some roots in childhood and worthiness or something. It's just occurred to me as I was thinking about my last encounter with a small child, and yesterday meeting this dog on my walk, and that's so easy, but very guarded with tenderness from other people.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
just noticing that, and yeah.
Right. Well, we have these habits of protection. And it is funny how we can let them slide when we're around children and animals. I think it's why people love animals so much. And, animals are just themselves. And that disarms us. I even think walking out in nature when, you're not necessarily, there are animals there, obviously, squirrels running around and whatever. But the whole feel of it is a place where there aren't egos. There's all this sensitivity in a forest, all this interaction. And yet you can almost feel how there aren't really egos there. There's nothing judging you. And it allows you to relax. There's nothing pretending to be something it's not. There's not even anything with an agenda necessarily. I suppose if there was an animal that wanted to eat you, there would be something that had an agenda. But with respect to yourself, for the most part, nothing really has an agenda, right?
Unconditional, I guess.
There's something unconditional about it. And, but it's interesting because children approach you with an agenda, often they want you to listen. They want to perform for you. They want attention. They're hungry for attention. And yet it's so easy to give it for the most part. I know there's times when it's like, oh my God, would you please? But for the most part, we just offer that, and the same with animals. Your point is really an important one. What happens with adults that we don't see them the same way? We're not really willing to cut them the same slack, give them that sort of unconditional acceptance. I do think it has something to do with judgment, something to do with our experience of judgment that starts to close us up. And it happens, pretty young with children. Occasionally you'll find somebody who's not too closed up at 6 years old, but then school gets a hold of them, and something starts to fall into place. So there's something about social conditioning and judgment from others, and certainly one can get judgment before school. It's not just that, but there's something about that where we close up. So I'm just kind of ad-libbing here a little bit on your topic. Just like, what is it? It's a great question. What is that? And does it have to be there? That's kind of the next question that comes to me. I think of moments when I couldn't help but be vulnerable with people. When they saw me, like something may have happened right there, and the way that people maybe saw me vulnerable and just responded. I think it's in us to do that. When somebody is vulnerable, I think it is in us to respond. But when we're doing this kind of adult thing, we're doing this, following the rules, following the playbook, having our social face on, it doesn't elicit the same response. And it's too bad, because I do feel that at heart people want to be close to each other. I do feel that that's really deeply in human beings. At the same time, when we have to deal with people we don't know, we have to kind of operate in a different way. But that's the question that always comes back to me: does it have to be that way? And could it be possible to drop some of it? Not necessarily vulnerability in the sense of, really being afraid or ashamed or having an intense emotion. But I often feel like people can read your face and your body language. And, I'm thinking, for instance, of walking down the street in New York City. There's a bad way that people read your body language, that they kind of want to come up and panhandle or whatever because they sense that you're open. But there's a really lovely way that I have walked down the street, and I don't go to New York City often, which is probably why this works. But I love the sea of humanity feeling that you get there just walking down the street, because literally people are there from everywhere in the world, and there's a lot of them, and there's just this flow of people coming towards you all the time. And it can be really lovely to walk down that street just open, just touched. And I find that there are a lot of times when people's faces will brighten up and lose their, that kind of thing that you have in the city. They'll just like light up in this presence of someone just for a moment. We're not necessarily going to have a conversation, but there's this opening where we acknowledge each other's presence, and they can feel that openness. I do think that we can feel that in others as we walk around, and it is infectious. All right, I kind of got a lot of mileage out of that, didn't I? So try it out. Try it out, Diane. See if you can see what it might be like if you can let some of that fall, that protectiveness around adults, around their vulnerability and your vulnerability. And then let me know what you notice. All right, anyone else out there who'd like to speak?
Hi.
Yeah. Hi, Anna.
I always feel like I'm this like the Hyoka, the Joker that's like become my role in this group. I have like the opposite experience. I'm like a really playful, open, silly person with adults. I just love like shaking people up. I grew up in New York City, and it was my mission to catch people's eye and smile at them on the street.
There you go.
Hate that people are always looking down. Look up and smile, people. And I just found that you can relate to New Yorkers at a very like friendly person to person level just by talking about the present situation. It's a great way to bring people out of their shells. What's happening to me as of late, and just because we're talking about kids and how wonderful they are and how tender they are, because I am having such a difficult time raising the very tender beings in my care, I'm having a really hard time maintaining that joy and upbeat forgiveness and presence with kids. Just like, just get in line already. We got to get your shoes on, get out the door. I just don't, I can be very playful and enjoy being with adults, but these kids are so challenging. They do not want to do what you want them to do. And that is very draining.
Well, thanks for filling in the rest of the picture, because
That was
what
the
you're saying is
flip side.
absolutely true. Those moments of we got to get in the car, we're late, put your shoes on, focus.
Just me trying to cook dinner just now while being repeatedly smacked in the bottom. When are we going to eat? What are we going to eat? Just sort of like didn't end. It is not joyful and enjoyable at this time. So just to say that, but thank God for the practice. This has been probably the hardest week ever in my parenting journey for a variety of reasons. I thought it couldn't get any harder. It got way harder. And just being able to practice every day. I'm just going way back to basics. I've been sitting a many years, and I'm looking at the focus, whatever it is. Tonight it was the body, this week it's been the breath, and not in a clenched way, just being able to be like, all right, this is the main focus, and I'm also aware of the periphery, and just getting that there are really like snapshots of each of those things. It's not like a river of awareness ever. It's like there's a snapshot of presence, and then I get a snapshot of what is the second, your minor in college, not the major, but what's the minor? It's like, well, the sounds are still there. Okay. And they might become a major distraction, but for now they're still minor. And just being able to stick with that and celebrate if I come back to it and find that I was drifting. So.
Beautiful. I think you're holding the container beautifully. And it's really challenging with kids. You're making me remember how important it was for me to meditate when I was a parent of young children.
It is a butt-kicking spiritual journey.
It is a butt-kicking journey. It is, yes. I would often say to myself, billions of parents have been able to do this. You can do this too, Mark, because it's very, very hard.
I don't know how many parents have had to deal with what I have to deal with, I will say, but this, yes, it is.
Yeah. I used to complain to the Buddha too. You never had to deal with this. So he opted out. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for bringing that note to the whole discussion of children.